And as you've heard, Kingstown, so it's located right here in the capital. We have students there in the gray and white from Sandy Bay Secondary School. That's one of our largest indigenous communities, primarily inhabited by the Garifuna people. We also have students of the West St. George Secondary School in the blue ties from the outskirts of the capital. Who else do we have? We have St. Vincent Grammar School, located right here in the capital, and Georgetown Secondary, out north. All right, so we look forward to an insightful day, and at this point, I will hand you over to the moderator of our first session. She is a retired teacher, but has been brought back into the system. So she currently teaches Spanish and theater arts at a secondary school at St. Martin Secondary. She has a certificate in teaching, the teaching of Spanish as a second language from El Centro Intermedio de Idiomas in Venezuela. She is trained in theater arts from the University of the West Indies, and she's one of our most successful theater arts teachers. She's a journalist also, holds certificates in journalism from the UE, that's the University of the West Indies. She's a stand-up comedian and has worked with comedians in the region, doing tours of the region and the New York circuit. She's a distinguished Toastmaster, and she also volunteers a lot. All right, she has worked with numerous organizations and individuals to aid in their achievement of their goals. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to turn you over now to our first moderator, Miss Gloria Williams.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I'm very short. A very wonderful and exciting morning to everyone here. And I will not go without saying it. Witi Benafi. Okay. This morning, it's a little different from the other mornings and the other days, where we have numerous young people, as Mrs. Nanton James said, so thereby bringing the focus on our youth as they try to look at initiatives to promote the transfer of technology to Garifuna and other indigenous people. Now, we have with us 5 students here. These students are from the St. Vincent Grammar School, Lensford Pemberton, and Joshua Malcolm. From the Georgetown Secondary School, we have 4 students, Luyana Belingi, 3 students, Luyana Belingi, Nalicia Ballantyne, and Danroy Holder. We may ask, why are they here? It is interesting that this year the Garifuna Heritage Foundation has launched out on another project. They, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, launched an essay competition, and students were requested to answer questions that would make up their composition. Following are the questions they were required to answer. How are the indigenous people's cultural traditions and practices preserved and celebrated in St. Vincent today? How are they? Number 2, why should the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines acquire the island of Baliso? Question number 3, should the Garifuna language be taught in schools? And the final question, should Garifuna descendants from other countries be entitled to Vincentian citizenship? So you're going to hear from each of these students. Leandre Pemberton from the St. Vincent Grammar School, he looked at, should the Garifuna language be taught in schools? Brianna Belingi from the Georgetown Secondary School looked at, should the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines acquire Baliso? Joshua Malcolm from the St. Vincent Grammar School looked at showed that the Garifuna language be taught in schools. Nalicia Ballantyne from the Georgetown Secondary School also looked at showed the Garifuna language be taught in schools. And Dan Roy Holder from the Georgetown Secondary School looked at the legacy of the Garifuna in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I am going to now invite each of these students, beginning with Lendre Pemberton, to come and deliver his essay. Now, upon delivery of every single student, we're going to ask persons to ask the students questions. We're going to try to make it short, concise, so that we could proceed quite smoothly. So let us welcome him as he comes. Come on, we can do better than that.
Good morning, all. I'm here to speak my essay about should the Garifuna language be taught in schools. Garifuna, Wainoga, Ugunye, Haruga. I am sure that many of you did not understand what I just said. I simply said Garifuna yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The fact that you did not understand should be motivation to start learning the language. After all, it is crucial for keeping our culture, identity, and history alive. I am no expert in speaking Garifuna. In fact, I was able to learn these words on YouTube. Just imagine if I had learned it in school. I probably would have written this entire essay in the language. I do hope that this essay convinces education stakeholders to teach a Garifuna language in school so I can rewrite it in the language sometime in the near future. The Garifuna language plays a significant role in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The language is closely tied to the history of the Garifuna people, reflecting their struggles, resilience, and unique identity. Unfortunately, like many native languages, the Garifuna could disappear if we don't protect it. Therefore, schools in St. Vincent and the Grenadines should teach the Garifuna language. This will help students connect with our cultural heritage, boost cultural tourism, and improve creative thinking despite the challenges that may arise. Teaching the Garifuna language in schools in SVG can help students feel more connected to their heritage and take pride in their cultural identity in various ways. First, it helps keep an important aspect of our ancestors' history alive, giving students the chance to learn about their past traditions and values. Additionally, speaking Garifuna allows students to feel a sense of connection as they communicate with people from other islands like Belize and Honduras who continue to speak the language today. It fosters a sense of national pride by showcasing the unique contributions of Afro-Caribbean and indigenous people to the society of St. Vincent. When students connect with their language and cultural background, they gain a better appreciation for their heritage. Furthermore, the Garifuna language is more than just a way to converse. It also shows the lively culture and rich heritage of the Garifuna people. Teaching Garifuna in schools helps students understand the historical struggles and successes of our ancestors, ensuring the preservation of the language for future generations will strengthen our cultural connections. During my time at the St. Vincent Boys Grammar School, I have realized that studying French has really helped me appreciate French culture, art, and history even more. So I am really convinced that if students learn Garifuna, we get to dive into and value the customs, music, and oral stories and traditional dances like punta that are so important to Garifuna culture. Just like we value languages like French and Spanish, for their cultural significance around the world, we should also acknowledge Garifuna for its importance in the diverse culture of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Some would argue that the lack of skilled teachers and fluent speakers would be a major challenge. They would also highlight that years of the language being overlooked have made it weaker, so it needs a serious effort in training and resources to revive it. But this is not impossible. In Hawaii, the Hawaiian language, which almost disappeared, has made a remarkable comeback. Schools are beginning to incorporate it into their curriculum, and the media in Hawaii is embracing it. These efforts show that when we come together with dedication, endangered languages can flourish. I urge the government, especially the Ministry of Education, to work together with linguists, teachers, and Garifuna culture groups to create a curriculum and provide training for educators. This could lead to amazing outcomes. Garifuna, Wainoga, Igunye, Haruga. Speak it loud, let it thrive, let us keep our history alive. In today's cultural tourism scene, the Garifuna language could really benefit the tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. A significant number of visitors want to find genuine cultural experiences, and the Garifuna language, with its unique linguistic and cultural features, provides a fascinating look into the country's heritage. By teaching the language in schools, we can create a new generation of guides, cultural ambassadors, and performers. These individuals will be able to connect with tourists in ways that are enriching and meaningful. By highlighting Garifuna culture and language through educational programs, cultural events, and tourism initiatives, the country can honor its rich heritage and attract visitors who are interested in discovering the history, music, and language of the Garifuna people. This will not only boost the economy, but also make the Garifuna community feel proud of what they have accomplished. It is possible that some individuals may claim that the incorporation of the Garifuna language into the already extensive educational curriculum does not seem to be practical. On the other hand, we are able to overcome these obstacles. This can be achieved if the Garifuna language is taught in schools using a variety of approaches, including the provision of lessons and the engagement of students in extracurricular activities that emphasize the importance of participation. Community workshops and after-school clubs are two examples of programs that might serve as vital initial stages in the process of progressively developing a foundation for wider participation. Garifuna, Wainoga, Igunye, Haruga. Our Garifuna language is truly unique. Also, studies show that learning more than one language can help us better understand other people, increase our creativity, and make us better at solving problems. Learning Garifuna, along with English, can help students in SVG understand and appreciate different cultures better, while also expanding their perspectives on a variety of subjects. Teaching the Garifuna language helps connect people and encourages interaction among members of the Garifuna community who live in different areas. This link can help SVG and other countries where Garifuna people live come together and work as a team, which will make our connection stronger. This also highlights how SVG is leading the way in preserving culture, which could support other countries struggling with their indigenous languages. Preserving the Garifuna language goes beyond just academics. It is about safeguarding the cultural heritage, identity, and resilience of the Garifuna community in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Bringing the language to school isn't just about honoring our past. It also gives future generations the opportunity to connect with their roots, discover cultural tourism, and develop essential thinking skills. Despite facing challenges such as lack of fluent speakers and resources, examples from other regions demonstrate with dedication and collaboration the Garifuna language can be revived. As Vincentians, it is our responsibility to ensure that Garifuna remains vibrant and continues to be a significant part of our identity as a nation. Let us start moving, discuss it, act it, and learn it. Garifuna, Wainoga, Yugunye, Haruga.
If only I could repeat those Garifuna expressions. One of these days. Lendre was excellent. You know, he seemed to be carving a pathway for the future. You notice how he delivered his work? Great job. He looked at the importance of teaching the language. He tied the history to the Garifuna people, and he didn't want it to disappear. So he said, you need to protect it. We need to improve our creative thinking. We need greater student participation. We need a sense of connection to our Garifuna relatives. And he went on and on. Let us give him a round of applause again. We will move steadily along as I now call Danroy Holder from the Georgetown Secondary School. Come on, let's welcome him as he comes.
Richie Winafi, everyone. Good morning. The legacy of the Garifuna in St. Vincent. The Garifuna people, also known as the Black Caribs, has left a lasting legacy in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Their history is one of resistance, cultural preservation, and resilience in St. Vincent in the face of the European colonial expansion. Though forcibly exiled from their homeland by British in the 1970s, their influence remained embedded in social, cultural, and historical fabric of St. Vincent. This essay will explore the legacies of the Garifuna, highlighting their impacts on Vincentian culture, identity, and historical consciousness. The Garifuna people emerged as a distinct group on St. Vincent, where African and indigenous Kalinago peoples intermingled. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the Garifuna fiercely resisted European colonization, particularly against the British, who sought to control St. Vincent as part of their growing empire. Their leader, Paramount Chief Joseph Chatier, played a central role in defending the island. Their resistance culminated in the Second Carib War from 1795 to 1797, after which the British exiled to the Garifuna, to Rotan, an island off the coast of Honduras. New information suggests that some Garifuna prisoners were prisoners of war and traveled to Portchester prison in England. In spite of the disappointment, their impact remained in St. Vincent. One of the most significant cultural legacies of the Garifuna is their language and oral traditions. While the Garifuna language is a unique blend of Arakan, Caravan, and African elements, it is no longer spoken widely in St. Vincent. Remnants of Garifuna expressions and storytelling traditions persist in Vincentian culture. The oral traditions and Garifunan, particularly their storytelling techniques and folklore, have influenced the way Vincentians pass down history and cultural knowledge. The Fancy Government School is known for their efforts to keep the language alive, as the greetings and other forms are taught to students. Music and dance are integral to Garifuna culture, and elements of their traditions have influenced Vincentian folk music. The use of drums, call and response singing, and rhythmatic dancing in Vincentian traditional performances reflects Garifuna musical styles. This could be seen in the spiritual Baptist religion, where the call and response aspect is a dominant part of their religious ceremonies. There are various groups that practice the punta dance. Previously, dances like maypole and quadrille quadrille were done in traditional ceremonies and were popular and had their origins in Europe. However, more and more dances are learning and participating in the Punta dance as means of connecting to their Garifuna heritage. Though the Garifuna people were exiled, their drumming traditions continue to resonate in some local traditions and celebrations, particularly among communities that seek to honor the indigenous African heritage of St. Vincent. Garifuna culinary traditions also left a mark on Vincentian cuisine. The use of cassava as a staple crop among the Kalinago and the Garifuna people remains central to many traditional Vincentian dishes. The preparation of cassava bread, farine, and other cassava-based food connects modern Vincentians to the indigenous and African influences of the past. The eating of wild meat like agouti, manaku, and tatu are also enjoyed by Vincentians. These meats are not normally eaten by persons outside of the Caribbean, but because of the Garifuna impact, they are still enjoyed by many. Seafood, another staple of the Garifuna cooking, continues to be a vital part of Vincentian diets, demonstrating the deep connection between the people and the ocean, a relationship long cherished by the Garifuna. The Garifuna legacy of resistance against European domination has become a source of national pride in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Garifuna struggle, particularly under the leadership of Joseph Chartier, is recognized by a defining moment in the Vincentian history. Chartier is honored as a national hero, and March 14, the anniversary of his death, is celebrated as National Heroes Day. His story symbolizes the broader resistance of Vincentians against colonial oppression and their fight for self-determination. The Garifuna's defiance against the British rule helped shape the later nationalist movements in St. Vincent. During the 20th century, where St. Vincent and the Grenadines pursued independence, the legacy of Garifuna resistance served as a historical reference point for political leaders and activists. Many people would reference Chartier's spirit being a part of them when they are encouraged and engaged in struggles. The Garifuna's fight against foreign control reinforced the sense of unity and pride among Vincentians, contributing to their national identity that persists today. In modern St. Vincent, efforts have been recognized and preserved to preserve the Garifuna legacy. Various culture and historical initiatives seek to educate Vincentians about their indigenous and African roots. The designation of sites associated with the Garifuna history, such as Beliso, where they were exiled, as places of remembrance, underscores the enduring importance of their history. Although the Garifuna were exiled from St. Vincent, connections between Vincentians and Garifuna communities in Central America remain strong. Cultural exchanges and historical commemorations help bridge the gap between those communities, fostering a shared sense of heritage. Some Garifuna people from Belize, Honduras, and other parts of the diaspora visit St. Vincent to reconnect with their ancestral land and host remembrance services. Educational programs and heritage initiatives continue to highlight the significance of Garifuna in Vincentian history. Schools incorporate lessons on Chartier and the Garifuna struggle, ensuring that the younger generations understand their contributions. Events such as the National Heroes Day includes lectures, performances, and reenactments that bring the history of the Garifuna people to life. Fancy and Greg's have kept the Garifuna culture alive with their Heroes Day initiatives and activities. The Garifuna Foundation hosts lectures to ensure that the knowledge of the Garifuna is kept alive. The legacy of the Garifuna in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one of cultural resilience, resistance, and national pride. Though we were forcibly removed from our homeland, their influence persists in Vincentian identity, from music and food to political consciousness and historical commemorations. The recognition of Chief Joseph Chartier as a national hero, the continued celebration of Garifuna culture, and the connections between Vincentians and the Garifuna diaspora all demonstrate their legacy, which remains alive. By honoring their contributions, St. Vincent and the Grenadines ensures that the Garifuna spirit of resistance and cultural strength will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Roy. He looked at He highlighted the history and emergence, the history of the emergence and impact of the Garifuna, and that which helped to build their legacy. He also looked at the composition of the language, and he lauded the fact that it is being taught in the fancy government school. We all laud that fact, right? Therein is an exciting beginning. He looked at the culture and, for example, the dance, the drumming, the food, and he looked at the symbol of Châteauye, that chief that he has left among us, one on which we continue to grow. Let's put our hands together for him again. Remember, you're going to ask your questions, but we are asking that you keep them until each student is completed, and then we will just flow steadily with your questions. We will now have Nelicia Ballantyne from the Sandy Bay Secondary School. Let's welcome Nelicia as she comes.
Brady Binafi. Imagine speaking a language passed down by our ancestors, one that connects us to our Garifuna roots across islands. The idea of speaking Garifuna will not only be a thrilling experience, but also an honor for Vincentians, linking us to our vibrant cultural heritage. Garifuna, an Arawakan language, is spoken primarily in Central America, including Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. It is a unique language that combines elements of Carib, Arak, and European languages, reflecting the rich cultural tapestry of the Garifuna people. With distinct male and female speech forms and a unique grammar and vocabulary, Garifuna is used in everyday conversations, music, storytelling, and rituals within the Garifuna community. Therefore, it is imperative that the Garifuna language be taught in schools to enhance students' cognitive abilities, preserve our cultural heritage, promote its use, and restore a sense of identity. Firstly, teaching the Garifuna language in schools offers significant cognitive benefits for students. Learning a new language is one of the most rewarding challenges a learner can undertake, as it stimulates the brain in unique ways by enhancing memory, critical thinking, and creativity. Acquiring a language involves engaging with grammar structures, vocabulary, and cultural nuances, all of which to sharpen the mind, increase flexibility, and improve the ability to tackle complex tasks. Hence, it is beneficial for students to learn a new language to improve their cognitive ability. Moreover, allowing students to learn another language in school enables them to become bilingual. Being bilingual contributes to the development of better problem-solving skills as students learn to switch between different linguistic structures. This practice can in turn enhance creativity and analytical thinking. Overall, teaching the Garifuna language will significantly aid students in improving their mental capabilities. Secondly, the Garifuna language should be taught in schools to preserve our culture and heritage. Without its inclusion in the curriculum, how can we learn more about our cultural identity? When students learn the Garifuna language, they gain insights into their traditions, such as storytelling, music, dance, religious practices, the transmission of oral histories, and ancestral knowledge. This connection empowers them to engage with their ancestors, fostering a deeper appreciation for their cultural roots and instilling pride in their heritage. Furthermore, learning the Garifuna language in schools encourages students to explore their cultural background and instills important values. It also helps ensure that our culture is preserved for future generations. Knowing that the younger generations are learning their language and traditions promotes a stronger sense of pride. In essence, teaching the Garifuna language in schools plays a vital role in keeping our culture alive and inspiring future generations to take pride in it. Thirdly, teaching the Garifuna language in schools is crucial for promoting its use. To conserve any language, it must be taught, utilized, and maintained, which in turn fosters a sense of identity rooted in its history. When the Garifuna language is integrated into the school curriculum, it often leads to a ripple effect at home, where parents can learn from their children and pass the language on to future generations. This creates an environment where we can communicate in our native language across various settings: schools, homes, supermarkets, churches, and more, celebrating our blessed homeland of Yume. Additionally, Garifuna speakers are often outnumbered by those who speak more widely used languages. By promoting Garifuna in schools, we encourage young people to speak it, share it, and incorporate it into their daily lives, ensuring its vitality. Consequently, this effort will significantly enhance the use of the language within our society. Fourthly, integrating the Garifuna language into school curricula is crucial for preserving our cultural identity and heritage. Teaching this language will instill pride in being recognized as Garifuna and deepen our connection to our roots. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, secondary schools currently teach French and Spanish to prepare students for the job market. Similarly, embracing the Garifuna language can enhance our tourism industry, as speaking our native language offers tourists a more authentic and immersive experience. Moreover, the Garifuna language strengthens bonds with our brothers and sisters in Garifuna communities across other islands. As Chuki, a Garifuna from Guatemala, pointed out, if the language dies, then the whole Garifuna as a whole, to me, is dead. In my point of view, you ain't a Garifuna if you don't speak the language. This emphasis on language highlights its vital role in connecting us to our traditions and heritage. Prioritizing Garifuna education empowers the younger generations to embrace their roots and fosters a profound sense of belonging. Language is not merely a means of communication. It is how we share our stories, values, and histories. Teaching the Garifuna language ensures that our rich culture is preserved and celebrated for future generations, bridging the gap between the past and the present. Ultimately, this effort builds a stronger community, encouraging unity and pride among Garifuna descendants while promoting cultural diversity within a broader societal context. Finally, teaching the Garifuna language in schools is essential for preserving the culture, history, and heritage of the Garifuna people, while also promoting multicultural awareness and appreciation. This inclusion in the curriculum ensures that future generations can connect with their roots and continue a vibrant tradition of storytelling, music, and community values. The teaching of Garifuna in schools contributes significantly to improving students' cognitive abilities, preserving cultural heritage, promoting the language's usage, and restoring a sense of identity within the community. As Chuki stated in 2009, if the language dies, it's just like a Garifuna dies. This underscores the critical importance of teaching the language in our educational institutions. By prioritizing Garifuna, we not only honor our ancestors but also equip our youths with the tools they need to forge meaningful connections with their culture. Thus, including the Garifuna language in schools is a vital step toward ensuring the continuity of our rich heritage and fostering a deeper understanding of cultural diversity among our students. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Excellent presentation, another an excellent one. Nalicia, you did a great number with this one. You said that the language is unique and it is spoken in countries where our relatives reside, and it should be taught in schools for cognitive benefit. And then she said, if it's taught in school, we become bilingual, right? Some people say I'm bilingual, but you talk Spanish along with your English. We're now looking at it in another way. And she says, if you learn this language, it improves your mental capabilities. It expands your communication skills and it gives you cultural awareness. And that is crucial for your cultural identity. I like what she said when she said, you're not a Garifuna if you don't speak the language. And then she went on to say if the language dies, Garifuna dies. Awesome, but that was a punch right in the right position. Let's give another round of applause. I will now have Luana Bilinji from the Georgetown Secondary School. Let's welcome her, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not feeling well, but I am going to try my best to speak and read my essay. The title of my essay is entitled, Should the Government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines Acquire Baliso? The question of whether the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines should acquire Baliso is one of historical significance, cultural preservation, and economic development. Baliso, a small privately owned island in the Grenadines, holds deep historical value for the Garifuna people, as it was the site where the British imprisoned and subsequently deported the Garifuna following the Second Carib War in 1796. Today, the island remains uninhabited, and with the recent for sale advertisement, a new debate has emerged. This debate centers around the issue of heritage preservation and national identity. This essay argues that the government of SVG should acquire Baliso to honor its historical importance, protect its cultural heritage, and promote sustainable development that benefits the nation. Baliso is an essential site in the history of the Garifuna people. Following the British victory over the Garifuna in the Second Carib War, thousands were exiled to Baliso under brutal conditions. Many perished due to disease, malnutrition, and exposure, and the survivors were later deported to Rotan, an island off the coast of Honduras, from which the Garifuna diaspora spread throughout Central America. New research has also shown that some of the Garifuna people made it to Britain as prisoners of war, where they were housed at Portchester Prison. This rich history of the island highlights that the island is much more than an uninhabited piece of land for sale. The history connects present-day Garifuna with the painful past that our ancestors endured. Hence, the acquisition of Baliso by the government would be a significant step not only toward recognizing the painful history, but also towards preserving it for future generations. Without government intervention, Baliso risks of being developed for private luxury tourism, which would erase or commodify its historical value. Acquiring the island would allow St. Vincent and the Grenadines to formally acknowledge the suffering endured by our Garifuna ancestors and create a space dedicated to education, reflection, and cultural preservation. Every year, on the 14th of March, descendants of the Garifuna people visit Baliso as a part of their pilgrimage. There, they reflect on what happened. This pilgrimage creates a connection with our ancestors. To leave this space open to possibility of being commercialized would take away from the sacredness of our ancestral home. Therefore, should the government acquire Baliso, it would demonstrate SVG's commitment to recognizing and honoring the contributions of the Garifuna people to the nation's history and cultural identity. The Garifuna people, though largely displaced from St. Vincent, remain an integral part of the nation's cultural fabric. Acquiring Baliso would provide a physical site for the descendants of the Garifuna and the wider Vincentian population to engage with their history. Establishing a national heritage site on the island could facilitate cultural events, academic research, and historical tourism that educates both Vincentian and international visitors. Additionally, acquiring Baliso aligns with SVG's broader efforts to preserve its indigenous heritage. The recognition of the Garifuna as a distinct cultural group by UNESCO underscores the importance of preserving their historical sites. A government-owned Baliso could become a symbol of national unity and reconciliation, promoting a more inclusive historical narrative that acknowledge all facets of St. Vincent and the Grenadines' past. While some may argue that Baliso would be financial burdensome, there are economic benefits that can be realized through strategic planning. The island could be developed in an ecotourism destination, attracting visitors' interest in history, culture, and natural beauty. Heritage tourism has proven to be a sustainable economic model in many countries, generating revenue while preserving historical sites. A government-led initiative to develop Baliso responsibility could create job opportunities for Vincentians in areas such as tour guiding, maintenance, research, and conservation. Unlike private luxury development, which primarily benefits wealthy investors and a limited segment of the population, a publicly owned Baliso could ensure that revenues contribute to national development and cultural enrichment. Furthermore, the acquisition could provide opportunities for international partnerships and funding. Organizations focused on cultural preservation and indigenous rights could support the development of education and heritage-related projects on the island. Additionally, partnerships with regional and international universities could foster research initiatives that deepen understanding of the Garifuna experience and history. Opponents of government acquisition may argue that the cost of purchasing and maintaining Baliso would be too high, diverting funds from other critical areas such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. However, cultural preservation and economic development are not mutually exclusive. With a well-structured plan, the island could generate revenue through sustainable tourism, grants, and international cultural partnerships. Another argument against the acquisition is that Baliso has remained untouched for centuries and could be left as it is. While conservation is important, leaving the island in private hands increases the risk of unsympathetic development that disregards its history significance. Government ownership would ensure that any use of the islands aligns with national interests and cultural preservation efforts. Some may also argue that the Garifuna diaspora, now largely based in Central America, should be the primary custodians of Balisu. While their involvement is crucial, SVG, as the homeland of Garifuna people, has a responsibility to recognize and protect this historical site. Collaborative management between the government and Garifuna organizations could be an effective model for ensuring that the islands serve both local and diasporic interests. The acquisition of Baliso by the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a necessary step towards honoring the country's history, preserving its cultural heritage, and promoting sustainable economic development. As a of immense historical and emotional significance, Baliso should not be left vulnerable to private exploitation or neglect. Instead, it should be transformed into a national heritage site that educates, commemorates, and unites Vincentians and the Garifuna diaspora. Through careful planning and international cooperation, SVGE can ensure that Baliso remains a testament to the resilience and cultural richness of the Garifuna people while contributing to the nation's socio-economic development. Acquiring Baliso is not just about reclaiming land. It is about reclaiming history, identity, and national pride. Thank you.
You jumped the gun. You heard that last sentence about ensuring that Baliso remains? Huh? Okay, this young lady, she touched it all around, you know. She looked at the historical significance, the cultural heritage. She looked at promoting sustainable development, and then she explored all of these little pieces one at a time, leaving everybody certain of what she was trying to say. She even looked at it being acquired or not acquired, you know, and she coined a phrase, a public-owned baliso. You heard that? So sometimes we underestimate our young people, you know, and I guess she would have written it and gone through the speaking of it to practice and so on. But I think every student who has presented here, it is clear that they are involved in what they are delivering. And that is what we want. They are involved. That's what we want. So students, yes, congratulations to all of you. We have one student remaining, and we're not going to make that student feel left out. You know, we're going to go straight into our next student, who is none other than from the St. Vincent Grammar School, Joshua Malcolm. Let's put our hands together for Joshua.
Good morning, everybody. My essay is entitled, Should the Garifuna Language Be Taught in Schools? The Garifuna people have a rich cultural legacy that is ingrained in their language. The Garifuna are descended from West African, Arawak, and Kalinago forebears. The Garifuna language has been designated by UNESCO as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity, provides a link between current and future generations and their historical and cultural heritage. Despite its cultural and historical relevance, newer generations have little to no exposure to the language. It is therefore in danger of going extinct. Formally incorporating the Garifuna language into the school curricula is therefore one way to preserve this linguistic gem. This essay makes the case that teaching the Garifuna language in schools is necessary to maintain its cultural relevance, promote respect for indigenous history, and stop the loss of a vital aspect of Garifuna identity. The importance of the Garifuna language. One of the most significant indicators of cultural identity is language, and the Garifuna language is no different. It represents the Garifuna's people's collective experiences, oral traditions, and hundreds of years of history. Garifuna is a linguistic creation of cultural fusion distinct from many other indigenous languages, in that it combines aspects of Arawak, Carib, and African linguistic influences. The Garifuna are indigenous to St. Vincent, and this country was their homeland until they were exiled by the British after the Second Carib War in 1797. Furthermore, the language plays a critical role in storytelling, music, and rituals that define the Garifuna heritage. The wisdom and cultural expressions that have been passed down through the years could be lost if the language is not properly preserved. Hence, the charge for its inclusion in the school curriculum. Future generations would continue to be connected to this distinctive linguistic and cultural legacy if Garifuna were taught in schools. It will also promote a greater awareness of our distinct Vincentian history and a sense of national pride. Teaching the language fosters cultural exchange. In Central America, there are numerous Garifuna communities who use dance, music, and their language to celebrate their culture. Building closer relationships with the Garifuna descendants residing in the diaspora can be facilitated by learning the language. It will help close the distance between Vincentians and our Garifuna counterparts who live in Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Belize. It is worth mentioning that some Garifuna people return to their motherland, St. Vincent, once a year to mark National Heroes Day. The language promotes linguistic diversity of our people. While English is the primary language spoken by the majority of our population, several schools also expose their children to Spanish, French, and Mandarin. The Garifuna language is recognized by UNESCO, and by studying this language, we can support the international fight to conserve it. A few schools across St. Vincent and the Grenadines have learned the national anthem and a few phrases in the Garifuna language via resource personnel that speak a bit of the language. These groups are sometimes invited to do presentations and teach a few of the Garifuna words to their hosts. The Garifuna language also has advantages for tourism and education. Students who learn the language will develop a greater appreciation for history and identity. Understanding the language will increase the fascination of these distinctive people for those who might be interested in the country's indigenous and African past. One proactive measure to protect the Garifuna way of life and guarantee that its cultural diversity endures is through the teaching of the language in schools. Developing an appreciation for the language. It has long been known that education is an effective means of promoting cultural awareness. Students would acquire a communication tool and get an understanding of the Garifuna people's larger cultural context by integrating the Garifuna language into school courses. Language instruction would foster inclusiveness and respect for cultural diversity by educating children about Garifuna history, customs, and beliefs. Beyond fostering cultural awareness, learning an indigenous language can help pupils develop cognitive abilities like flexibility and problem solving. Schools have a significant influence on how society is valued. And by emphasizing the teaching of indigenous languages, they can promote pride in, in and appreciation for the contributions made by the Garifuna people to Caribbean history and society. What the Garifuna language symbolizes. The Garifuna language is more than a communication tool. It is a potent representation of identity and resiliency. The language used by the Garifuna people reflects their history of surviving persecution and exile. The Garifuna people have retained a strong cultural presence since their forced relocation from St. Vincent to Central America, and a significant part of their lasting identity is their language. It represents self-determination, resistance, and continuity. Thus, a vital component of the Garifuna people's identity and history would be lost if the Garifuna language disappeared. As a result, including the language into educational systems would uphold its symbolic significance and guarantee its continued existence for future generations. The resulting loss of heritage from failure to teach the language. An irreplaceable cultural legacy would be lost if the Garifuna language was not taught in schools. As linguistic idioms, proverbs, and oral traditions that capture a people's way of life vanish, language loss frequently results in cultural disintegration. Our society will be deprived of a vital connection to our ancestors, customs, and identity with every generation that does not learn the language of the Garifuna. Owing to the fact that younger members find it difficult to comprehend the linguistic and cultural expression of their elders, the declining use of the language also erodes ties between generations. If nothing is done, the Garifuna language may become extinct and only be found in historical writings rather than being actively used among Vincentians. In conclusion, the Garifuna language serves as a conduit for cultural history, identity, and resiliency, in addition to being a language of communication. To maintain its importance, cultivate appreciation among the next generation, and stop the loss of a priceless cultural legacy, teaching the language in schools is critical. Education institutions, Educational institutions can play a crucial role in preserving the identity of the Garifuna people by prioritizing Garifuna language instruction. The incorporation of Garifuna in formal education is an essential step in guaranteeing that this rich linguistic legacy remains for future generations. Preserving indigenous languages is a shared responsibility.
And that was our final speaker. That was our final speaker who looked at the language and declared that without exposure, extinction will follow. You know? So he advised that the language should be taught in school so that because it can act as an indicator for cultural identity, and we know that is really important. He looked at even the areas like the dance, the music, the actual speech, and so on, and he says these can close gaps in our communication. And he said, why not the Garifuna language? Because you teach French, you teach Spanish, and now we are teaching Mandarin. So why not Garifuna? And that really came over quite nicely. And he said that there is a great appreciation for history and identity, and it could therefore be integrated slowly, if so, in school courses. And that would help with cultural awareness, and that it's a vital component of history and identity. And if this is not done, it would be lost. And that's not what he was recommending. He also said that the language serves as a conduit for cultural and historical and history, culture and history, and we must cultivate an appreciation. Thereby, he is advocating that it must be incorporated into formal education. Let's put our hands together for all 5 students. We have come to the point where we are going to give these students a reward for the work they would have done. And I now invite Miss Nashaki Samuel from the Ministry of Education here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Mrs. Zoila Ellis Brown from the Garifuna Heritage Foundation.
Good morning, Buiti Benafi. We have heard the presentations from these wonderful students, and it is now my pleasure to invite each one to receive a certificate of appreciation, which is jointly from the Ministry of Education and the Garifuna Heritage Foundation. First up is Mr. Leandra Pemberton. Leandra Pemberton. Thank you, Mr. Pemberton. Dan Roy Holder. Thank you. Congratulations. Ms. Alicia Ballantyne. Thank you and congratulations. Ms. Loania Bilinji. Thank you, and Mr. Joshua Malcolm. No, thank you, Mr. Malcolm. As part of the process of this essay, the essays were judged by officials, and we now have an announcement of the winners. Third place goes to Lendre Pemberton from the St. Vincent Grammar School, and we are pleased to have a small token of appreciation to Mr. Pemberton. Second place to Dan Roy Holder of the Georgetown Secondary School. Thank you, Mr. Holder. Congratulations on your achievement. And the winner is Miss Luania Belingi of the Georgetown Secondary School. Congratulations, Luania. That we have the rest of the students, you're not to be left out. We will each be receiving our VINLEC calendar, which was developed by the Garifuna Heritage Foundation in collaboration with the VINLEC Electricity Company, which is the first time this electricity company has done a calendar which is focused on the Garifuna heritage. And that calendar is an important symbol of the future collaboration between the foundation and a corporate entity, because this calendar has a QR code which you can get further information on the Garifuna heritage for future reference. So we are very pleased that VINLEC Corporate collaborated with the foundation in the development of this calendar. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for all these students.
Zoila.
I was told that the vehicle with registration number RR124 is currently blocking someone, and we were asking, could you please quickly go and let that person out? RR124. Please. Thank you. We now move on to the presentation of Garifuna Language Caribbean STEM Olympiads Gold Medal Project.
I just want to make
a quick announcement.
Just want to make a quick announcement. I know a lot of us, a lot of people here were very inspired by what we just saw and heard. I've been blessed. God has blessed me quite a bit. And so what I'd like to do is, on behalf of myself and my wife, we would like to donate to the Garifuna Foundation $1,000 per year for the next 3 years. So that's $3,000 total. So this can continue. I'd like to see David and Zoila, because this is definitely needed for this next generation. So this can be used for trophies, certificates, whatever is needed for the schools, for the kids, so this way we can take this a little bit further. This has been tremendously a blessing, and I know that we've seen it. And sometimes we have to give what we have, particularly for the next generation. So you have a commitment from me and my wife, $1,000 per year for the next 3 years to help support this in this continuance for a total of $3,000. Thank you.
That is definitely much appreciated.
Mr. Gamboa, we are very, very appreciative of this contribution. I'm sure the students who are here, would recognize the fact that you put out effort and you're only getting back a token. You will get a bigger token after this donation. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Come on, let us put our hands together for the donors, please. Students, you can rest assured, go back to school and encourage your colleagues to get in there next year. Right? We now have the presentation by Miss Kamala Mars and Miss Naya Scott as the students exit and they find seats in the audience after such some wonderful displays of delivering their speeches and so on. Okay, let me tell you